Now let's invite Dr. Ardavan Khoshnood. The stage is yours.
So, thank you very much. A huge honor being here, not only because we're sitting at the heart of the European democracy, but also for being able to sit here together with an old and dear friend, Charlie. Thank you for everything you have done, Charlie, through the years. I know I've said it a lot. I'm going to say it even more in the future. So, my name is Ardavan and I'm an associate professor at Lund University, and I was thinking to discuss a little bit about the use of terrorism in the foreign policy of the Islamic Republic. Let's start with the Quds Force, which Dr. Shaybani discussed a little bit. The Quds Force is the extraterritorial arm of the IRGC and responsible for clandestine and covert operations like assassinations, like espionage, and so on and so forth. The Quds Force was established in 1990, but do not think that the regime did not conduct covert operations before 1990. It was instead conducted via the Office of Islamic Liberation Movements. And it was when the Office of Islamic Liberation Movements went together with a couple of intelligence organizations in the IRGC, as well as the Special Operations Unit, which the Quds Force was created. And their main objective is to protect and advance the Islamic Revolution. And by advancing the Islamic Revolution, what they mean is exactly what Dr. Shaybani said in his speech. It's all about getting the Islamic Revolution to other countries and making other countries, people of other countries, to rise up against their leaders. The manpower of Quds Force is not known, certainly, but it's somewhere between 5,000 and 20,000 individuals, depending a little bit on how you count. And what is very interesting is that the Quds Force, they have a unit called the Unit 400. A Unit 400 was created in the beginning of the 2010s, and they are responsible for conducting covert operation and clandestine operations in the Western world. They do not seldom cooperate with the Ministry of Intelligence. The Ministry of Intelligence is independent from the IRGC. However, quite often the Ministry of Intelligence also uses operatives from the Quds Force in order to conduct their clandestine operations. They have a couple of priority targets, which I will discuss with you. However, what is very interesting to know about the Quds Force is that they use both Iranian and non-Iranian operatives. That is very interesting to know, because many of the individuals that during the last couple of years have been arrested and also convicted in different countries for espionage or terrorism have been individuals of non-Iranian origins. And that is something quite common. These individuals are from Afghanistan, from Iraq, from Lebanon, but also from Pakistan, for example, as I will show a little bit later. The targets are usually divided into three parts. The targets of the Unit 400. The targets are, as you can see, Iranian dissidents, which are they are high priority targets, but also Israeli Jewish entities, individuals, organizations, cultural centers, and so on. Western countries are deemed to be targets, however, only if they are deemed to be a threat to the security of the Islamic regime. As long as Western countries do what the regime say, they are not safe. They are a little bit safer than others, but not safe, because even though Western countries during the last 30, 35 years, 40 years have been friends with the Islamic Republic, Iran have continued to conduct clandestine operations and terrorist attacks all over the Western world. The fact is that during the 1980s and 1990s, the world witnessed hundreds of assassinations and assassination attempts all over the world, not least in the Western world. And even though we have seen a decrease of these assassinations during the last 10 to 15 years, it's not because the Islamic Republic does not have the will nor the means to conduct them, but it's doing some risky calculations of what's best for them. For example, when they can have a hostage policy, which Mr. Weimers discussed, they maybe do not need to use the force of terrorism as much as they did before. However, it's like Dr. Anthony Wedge, a professor of intelligence studies from Holland, if I'm not mistaken, he says that Tehran does little to conceal its roles in different terrorist attacks. The Islamic Republic wants you to know that they are behind the terrorist attacks. They want you to know that they are conducting covert operations, that they are conducting clandestine operations, and with that they want to spread the fear. And they have done that quite effectively, actually. Let's start with the Mykonos assassination in Berlin in 1992, which is perhaps the most infamous terrorist attack Iran has conducted with the help of the Quds Force. In 1992, a couple of Iranian oppositional forces were gathered at a Mykonos restaurant in Berlin. A couple of terrorists from the Quds Force opened fire, killing several individuals. Interestingly, a couple of Swedish politicians were also planned to be at the restaurant in this meeting, which however did not happen. And the German Supreme Court in April 1997, they stated that the highest officials of the Islamic Republic were responsible for these attacks, and that it was the IRGC which conducted this operation. However, this is not so often when we discuss terrorist attacks conducted by the IRGC and its Quds Force. We go to the 80s, we go to the 90s, but we do have a lot of examples to show you that this is still, that terrorism is still a viable option for the IRGC. I will give you a couple of examples you can take with you. Haydar Mustafa, a Pakistani national, was arrested in Germany and convicted in March 2017 for spying on a Reinhold Robbe. Reinhold Robbe was previous the president of the German-Israeli Society. And another target was a French-Israeli economy professor in Paris. However, Haydar Mustafa was arrested and he was convicted for this to imprison, and it is stated in the court rule that it was the Quds Force which had hired him in order to conduct this operation and to map out Israeli nationals or individuals with a Jewish background. The next one is Norway in April 2016, and I can actually tell you that this case was revealed for just a year ago. Otherwise, we did not know about this case before a year ago. In April 2016, while an Iranian national was spying on a prominent Norwegian Israeli individual in his garden, he was arrested by the Norwegian security police and sent back to Iran without, of course, any court or any prosecution. And the most recent one, as Mr. Weimers also stated, is the one we have in Sweden, the country where I live. And in 2015, these two individuals, which are seen in the image there, they came to Sweden. And one of the most heinous thing with this action is what Mr. Weimers said, that the immigration agency, they had been tipped off by several individuals, not one, not two, but several individuals, that this couple is a dangerous couple. They work for the Quds Force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, yet they were given asylum in Sweden. And in February this year, the Swedish radio exposed the case and stated that they were after killing 3 prominent Swedish with Jewish background in Sweden, on Swedish soil. One of them was Mr. Aron Verstendin. And the most interesting part with this is that there was an interview with the head of the counter-espionage force of the Swedish security police, Daniel Westling, and he said, for the very first time ever, he said that this was an attack planned by the Quds Force of the IRGC. It's an official statement from the Swedish security police, and we have never actually ever seen something like this before, that they state this information. My concluding remark here, I don't want to bore you guys out, but my concluding remark is that terrorism is still a highly viable option. If the Islamic Republic are not using it as much as they did in the 1980s and in the 1990s, is once again not because they do not have the wills nor the resources, because they do. But there are many other problems, and one of these problems is that we don't know about these attacks before many years after. There are three factors I would like the European Union to think of when they discuss Iran. First of all, it's the embassies of the Islamic Republic in European countries. There are numerous scientific studies showing how these embassies are used to conduct covert operations, to conduct assassinations. The one embassy which is most important in this case is the Islamic Republic's embassy in Germany. Another problem is cultural centers, as also Mr. Virus discussed, because we do have these cultural centers in Sweden. Actually, we have them all around Europe. Cultural centers being like mosques and other cultural centers, which in reality acts as espionage dens and places where not only assassinations are planned, not only where espionage are planned and conducted from, but also where they try to find individuals agreeing with the cause of the Islamic Republic and having them to join them. Mosques is one of the major problems. And the image you are seeing is from the Islamic Center Mosque in Hamburg, Germany, which has been shown to have very close ties to the Islamic regime, in also being part of its malign activities. So, terrorism as a factor in the foreign policy of the Islamic Republic is once again highly valuable, is used, and we will see more of it as the regime feels more and more unsecure. Thank you.